35. Astronomer. Astronomical observatories in many areas have become useless because light from nearby cities obscures the stars. Many people argue that since streetlights are needed for safety, such interference from lights is inevitable. Here in Sandsville, however, the local observatory's view remains relatively clear since the city has restricted unnecessary lighting and installed special street lamps that direct all their light downward. It is therefore possible to have both well-lighted streets and relatively dark skies. So the question asks, the astronomer's argument proceeds by. So the astronomer was saying that a lot of observatories have become useless because of the light from nearby cities, right? And then he says, well, many people think that this means that many people think that this is an inevitable problem, right? Many people think that there's nothing we can do about this. But then the astronomer says, well, there is something we can do about this. And an example of that, right, is Sandsville. We can do something about this. And then he concludes, well, because of this example that I've shown you, we know that it's possible to have both things at once, right? So most people say it's one or the other. Sandsville is an example that shows you can have both. Therefore, the astronomer shows that we can have both things. So let's look at our answer options. A, appealing to a scientific authority to challenge a widely held belief. Who would be the scientific authority here, right? Does the astronomer refer to someone high up in the scientific community? Does the astronomer appeal to the president of NASA or the head of NASA or anything like that? No, right? He's not, or she is not talking to any authority in the science field, right? So we can cross out A for that reason. B, questioning the accuracy of evidence given in support of the opposing position. What would be the opposing position here? Maybe the many people that argue that you can only have one or the other. The other issue here, I guess, the bigger issue is questioning the accuracy of evidence, right? What evidence was given that the astronomer is questioning the accuracy of? I don't think there's any evidence that these, maybe the many people, that would be the opposing side, right? Did they give evidence that the astronomer is questioning? Not really, right? The other side didn't really have evidence. They just had a claim, and the astronomer disagreed and gave a specific example that showed that, what they said wasn't true. So I don't think B is our answer either for that reason. C, proposing an alternative scientific explanation for a natural phenomenon. Okay, so an example of what C could look like would be if you said, well, some people think that the moon is bright at night because it produces its own light, but an alternative scientific explanation is that the moon has the light of the sun shining on it, right? It's when you're taking something that is a natural phenomenon, something that is happening in nature, and then you're giving an alternative scientific explanation for it. Is the astronomer doing that here? Not really, right? The astronomer isn't talking about an alternative scientific explanation, right? He's just, or she is just giving an alternative, not even an alternative. The astronomer is just saying, this can happen. These two things can happen together. And one of those things is a natural phenomenon, but the other thing isn't. And you don't need, or there is no alternative scientific explanation, right, for like the dark skies, which would be the only natural phenomenon that they talk about here. So this also isn't our answer. D, making a distinction between terms. So that would look like, something like saying, this word is different from that word because XYZ, right? Is the astronomer saying that two terms are actually different and that someone has confused them as one word or one term? No, right? What would be the word that people confused for another word? Perhaps it could be something with light, but I don't think light is used in two different ways throughout or anything like that, right? The word light stays the same throughout. I don't think there's any distinction made between different words, right? So D is also probably not our answer. Let's hope it's E. E, offering a counterexample to a general claim. So, okay, a general claim could be what many people say, right? Many people argue that the interference from lights is inevitable, right? So that's our general claim. And the counterexample that the astronomer offers is the astronomer says, well, look at Sandsville, right? Sandsville can do both, so it's obviously possible to do both, and it's possible to have both. So E would be our answer here.